scientist's house in which his children were sleeping, and I was quite interested in how one person can be both those things.
Do you mind if I jump in?
Yeah,
Just 'cause I'm
that's
curious.
why we're here.
So, is this coming from like your own personal experience? And is that
I mean,
right?
I've not been hijacked on a plane, although that would be the best publicity, wouldn't it?
yeah.
I would sell so many books. It sort of came from that world of having worked with activists. I was a riot commander, public order commander, so I worked with protesters a lot. And I'm really interested in the psychology of what drives someone to extremism and how people can be radicalized. I think it's really interesting.
Oh, that's fascinating.
But so what did you find when you were like researching on those kind of movements and people like that? Did you find them to be evil or good people, just like misguided on the?
That's such a good question. A bit of both. But I think, like in all aspects of crime, I think there's a very fine line between lawlessness and lawfulness, and we can all cross it. You know, I think anyone in this room has the potential to do something terrible, to do something illegal, if the right buttons are pressed.
I agree, because this came to me because I saw someone asking a question about like, how can someone be as evil as Vladimir Putin? Just to give an example, and I was just like, well, I'm sympathetic with the terrible sufferings of the world now. We're not going to talk about that, but to me, it's a question that doesn't make much sense, because most people, even the people who've been doing the most horrible things throughout history, they kind of believe, and they sincerely believe, that they're doing it for the right purposes. That's true. I mean, most terrible, like people who did genocides, and I guess that also involves terrorists. You know, that most of them are not like sadists or nihilists. Most of them are, I would guess, or.
I think that people that are committing genocide are pretty like far down the scale of horrible person. That's just my view, but I think they're homicidal maniacs. Well. But what I do think is that it's a big spectrum, isn't it? And you know, I could try and radicalize you. I would just have to work out what it is that, you know, where are your vulnerabilities? Where are your vulnerabilities? And then I would prey on you and make you do my bidding.
And I think it's, you know,
I'm quite excited by that idea, actually.
We'll talk about it later in the bar. I think everyone is the hero of their own story. You know, and I think particularly it fits in well with us writing, you know, thrillers or psychological crime, because it allows us to walk in the footsteps of people who are quite sociopathic sometimes. And I find when I'm writing characters like that it's very easy to get into someone's head in that way and to kind of really push yourself. So I think what you said earlier is completely right. We're all just a couple of steps away from something.
And you in particular, presumably you researched mental illness and the sort of the world of psychiatry for the silent patient.
Well, not for, I lived it.
You were?
I wasn't, I studied to be a psychotherapist, but I didn't graduate because I had a lot of problems with it. But I worked in a clinic for teenagers for a long time. And I kind of, you know, I was a patient for like 10 years myself as well. So I brought a lot of that into it. But it's like you, and I watched Claire's interview earlier today, and I was really, really struck by one of the answers that you gave, because somebody said that you two could just leave now. We'll continue. Somebody said that the question was asked, you know, how much of your personal experience in the force do you bring into your works? And you said less and less and less and less. And I loved hearing that, because I've done 2 novels about psychotherapists, and I don't want to write about psychotherapists for the rest of my career. And I feel like at some point, is that what happens? You just. I
think so, and I think, you know how they say that your first novel is almost an autobiography,
Sure.
And you know, and it can be couched in lots of different ways, but basically you put a lot of yourself. Like you, so you're a novelist, right?
Yeah.
So how much of yourself was in that first novel?
No, yeah, sure. No, I agree.
So I think then you sort of move away from it with each book, and then eventually you're 22 books in and you're just making the whole thing up.
Couple books in and you're writing about eco-terrorists on a plane.
But we need to talk a little bit like TV and like something that normally like TV shows and TV series is something that we've been talking lot about, like down here in the basement for many, many years. And so I want to ask Björn, you're a TV critic, and just to like kick off this session, have you been watching something like spectacular the last year?
No, probably not anything life-changing, but I have to admit that I was actually quite surprised how much I liked the new Reacher series.
The one on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Oh, it's amazing.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it because it's not spectacular and it's nothing fancy. It's just Jack Reacher.
It is him, and it's funny as
Yeah.
well, isn't it? And the book, because the books are quite funny. They've got these throwaway lines that just kind of, they don't make you laugh out loud, but they sort of make you smile a bit. And it seems to have the balance just right.
Yeah.
And he's really hot as well.
Yeah. Alan Ritchson, yeah. Yeah, and he's
You kind of prefer him to Tom Cruise as Reacher?
Oh, totally, totally.
Yeah.
Arms, he's got arms. This guy.
I love Reacher and
White Lotus, can we just throw that out? Has anyone seen
White Lotus?
I mean, that's
that's
life-changing. I've seen
Yeah.
that 3 times now. I mean,
Yeah?
I'm just blown away by the writing and that. If anybody's not seen White Lotus, you have to watch it tonight,
that's good.
because it's the best TV show ever
I
made.
haven't seen it, but
Oh
I'm
my
on
God, you're gonna
stage
love it.
later. I can't watch it tonight.
Well, later.
Okay.
It's so brilliantly observed and funny and fantastic.
What's
You
it
like
about?
It is about ghastly Americans on holiday.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it already.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Brilliant.
But told through the eyes of the people who work at the hotel.
Oh, that sounds brilliant.
It's so good.
It's like Fawlty Towers on an island.
Oh,
yeah,
my
outside
word.
America.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
It
brilliant.
is on drugs.
On drugs, yeah.
So I,
On ecstasy.
what
Yeah.
I'd like to know then is how much does it matter to you when you're watching something, how realistic it is? So I watched Vigil last year. Did you have that on
Vigil
a submarine?
is that the like that super fast-paced, crazy submarine
Yes. So
series?
it had no basis in fact at all.
No.
It was
It's
but
almost
I
science
loved
fiction.
It was
Yeah.
almost science fiction. So does it matter to you? Do you want to feel like it's real when you're
Well,
watching something?
It's a good question. I guess the answer is that most of the time it depends so much how it's done, you know, because you have something that it's more about being believable and credible in a way, you know, and sometimes that can be something that is very, you know, like close to reality and very you know, high on those kind of things. I mean, if you watch The Wire, for example, you feel that you're like, it's part of, it's almost like a social documentary, you know, in a way. But then you can have some other things, and it all depends on, you know, how the sort of premise is being played out. And I can also like the opposite, something, yeah, I haven't seen Vigil, but something of that sort that can, so I don't know.
I read this. It's an amazing book called The Nolan Variations, which is like interviews with Christopher Nolan, the director who did the Batman trilogy, Tenet, Interstellar, and he talks a lot. He says, I think he quotes somebody else, but he says like you can lie and cheat and deceit, and you can do like all the incredible stuff you want to do as a writer or director in the last third of a movie.
Oh, wow.
But in the first third of a movie, you have to make it all believable. You have
That's a good point.
I've got
That's
to read.
really
I
good.
never would have written The Silent Patient without Memento, his first film.
Yeah.
Because that just blew my head off. The circular, you know, it's so
Yeah.
he's so brilliant. I'm going to read that book.
yeah, it's fantastic. He
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
like in the Nolan Variations. He goes through all his film. He talks through his films, how he made them and who he made them with, and what were the ideas that he was trying to deal with in all these movies.
That sounds amazing. So I wonder then if you can get away with anything in the last third, if that comes down in film, TV and books to character, that if you've created characters that feel so real that you're walking along with them,
Yes.
that actually by the time you get to that last third, you're so in their head that you just kind of go with it.
Yeah, I think that's the point. Yeah.
It's easy. You can mess it up though. I mean, it needs to be believable. You know, it can be stupid, it can be heroic. I don't know, but it needs to somehow kind of speak to the whatever the reader's perception of these people are. And if you kind of like go completely out of character, and I guess this is where TV and real life differ in a way, because in real life, and like history is full of events that if you kind of came up with such a premise in a book, the editor would just politely tell you that, okay, kind of like 2 planes crashing into a World Trade Center in New York, like in 1999 novel. I'm not so sure. No, that's too much.
They'd say like do 1. 1's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
2 is ridiculous.
Yeah, or you have hundreds of examples of those kind of things, you know. And then, so basically, I think in fiction you need to stick to some, whether it's like TV or writing, you need to have some kind of, you can't differ too much from this.
Yes and no. I mean, I think about this kind of thing all the time. I'm sure Claire does as well, because you coming up with plots, murder plots and stuff, and then I think, you know,
for your job or just like in your private life?
In my always in my private life. And then you just think, is that too crazy a way to kill someone? And I love Agatha Christie madly, and I run into that with her sometimes, because I find the best of her novels are where it's more elegant, more pared down, and more simple. But
which writer was that?
Agatha Christie.
Yeah.
But the more crazy it gets, and when she starts bringing in twins and wigs and stuff like that, you lost me. You know, the more elaborate something is, the harder it is to sell. I think.
Yeah.
Don't you think that?
Yeah, it is, and also she does occasionally rely on coincidence a little too heavily.
Yeah.
Which you just can't, and that does happen sometimes. So I've talked about this before, but I dealt with a real life job when I was a police officer, when a guy was kidnapped, a taxi driver was kidnapped, and he was held hostage for 2 or 3 days, and they were torturing him. It was an awful job. And then they took him out in a car, and it was his only opportunity to escape. And he wrote the address of the flat he was on a £10 note and threw it out of the car window. Now, that £10 note could have ended up like down a drain, but somebody picked it up, went into a shop, tried to buy something with it, and then saw the writing, called the police. He got rescued. You know,
that's
happy.
true. Is that really
it's a
true?
True story. But if I wrote that in a book, you'd just think, oh, for heaven's sake, that's too much.
Same thing. Yeah, that's the point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can't have coincidence.
That speaks to, you know, like I would say, we were mentioning it a bit, but you know, you guys are some of the best in the business, I would say, to come up with.
We are the best.
Okay, let's not be shy here. You are the best. But anyway, so about like making this kind of like having the perfect twist. And your twist from the first one is very famous, and your twist from Silent Patient also, and also from there are multiple ones in all of the books, of course. But so basically, if we come down to how to make a believable good twist, is there something you can say? Is it just something?
Is there a recipe?
Do you start with a twist?
Yeah. Did you?
Always.
Yeah.
Yeah. You have to know where you're going, right? Otherwise, you can't get there. You need to know where.
Yeah. It's. So I think it's a magic trick.
Oh my God! That's what I always say. Oh my God! Oh my God!
He's like
You
my
are
work
the best.
husband.
Either that means you're really profound, or in fact we're
It's really basic. So you go to a magic show, right? And there's loads of feathers, and there's pretty women, and you know, lots of show. And he pulls a rabbit out of a hat, and then something else happens. And he makes you look in that direction, and all the time it's happening over here.
It's all misdirection, and that's what you did with I Let You Go so well. I read that twice when it first came out, because you just get the reader to look in the wrong way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't cheat, and you don't cheat either. It's absolutely down the line. And if there is an unrelaable narrator, it's the reader. The reader is seeing
unreliable
what they
reader.
want to see.
Unreliable,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
great.
Because human nature is to make assumptions about things, and so as the author, we can play God, and we can say, you're going to assume that. And then once they've got that, it's just fixed in place.
But how do you test that, or do you do that, okay, now I got to figure it out, or do you?
Well, you can't, and that's the horror of the job.
Yeah.
Because, I read a really lovely quote by Agatha Christie where she said that writing a twist is like creating a new recipe. And so she said that you don't know if it's any good until you've cooked it and you've given it to someone and they take a bite. And then you find out if it's really, really bad or it works.
But see, I don't think that analogy works.
Why?
Because I'm just going to criticise Agatha Christie.
And me, but go on, go for it.
Because she can taste it herself.
I can't, though.
We can't read it.
But you can't taste it yourself when you're writing it, can you? I can't.
No, exactly. But if you're cooking, If you're cooking, you know if it tastes bad.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Whereas we
Yeah.
read something and we know the twist, so we can't test it ourselves.
Yeah, but
So
do you
I think
test
she's
it or not? Do you test it or do you have?
They think you're not drunk enough, Claire. Give the woman some
This
booze.
is the best event I've ever been to.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. There. Chin chin.
Okay.
That's so funny. Oh, either that means it's going really well or it's going really badly. I'm not sure. One of the two.
I think they just want to shut me up.
Speaking about Agatha Christie, any favorite Agatha Christie stories? Favorite Agatha Christie novels?
Many. I mean, Five
Yeah?
Little Pigs for me is a work of pure art. It's beautiful. It's not that easy to read. It's a bit of a slog to get through, I think. But I think the last 3 pages of that are the best things she ever wrote. And it's about, Laura Thompson, her biographer, said something I thought was fantastic. And she said in the really classic Christies, and she wrote like 500 books. And so there's only, she has a very high batting average. I'd say there's only about 6 to 10 that are brilliant. She said that the plot resolution and the character resolution occur in the same beat. And when that happens, you have a masterpiece.
Oh, I like that.
I think about that all the time.
I am now going to think about it all the time.
Yeah.
Does she elaborate on that? Is there more I can read on that?
Yeah, definitely.
Good.
Yeah.
Can you send me?
I'll send you
me
some
stuff.
notes.
Send me some notes. With the twist thing, though, how do you test your twist? What do you do with it?
I don't know. I just
Do you have select readers who?
no, God, never. That's
No.
the horror of it. I think you have
Oh
readers.
God, no! Not
No.
even nobody except
Yeah.
my editor.
Yeah, me too.
That's it. My
And even then, so
editor.
I'm about to deliver my 3rd novel in 2 weeks, and I'm oh my
Sorry,
God.
your 3rd novel in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
You've written 3 novels in 2 weeks.
No. 4. Actually. I need some more wine as well.
Is that just because you're next to me?
So, and I keep delaying because it was meant to be a Valentine's Day gift for my editor. Gift. And then I was just too scared to send it to him because I just thought it was ready. And I keep delaying, and now he said to me, okay, the joke's kind of out. Now he's like, just send me the bloody book. But I'm scared. You must be scared because you think if they don't, they may think the writing's great, they may think the characters are great, but if the story and the architecture doesn't work for the kinds of books that we write, you're fucked.
Yes.
Really.
Yeah.
And that's the, I think like for a straight novel, it's a lot easier to write something that necessarily doesn't.
Sometimes, I'll let you into a little secret,
on.
sometimes I fantasize about writing a really sort of happy, funny, romantic comedy where everyone knows that they're going to live happily ever after. And so I don't have to think of a twist, because it's quite exhausting.
Yeah, but people would expect a twist from you anyway.
I know,
At this
I
point.
know. And I would probably want to put one in anyway.
Right, yeah.
We're cursed. We're basically cursed.
Yeah.
We have to carry on writing twisty books forever until we die.
And the problem, just to drag it back to Christie again, is just because I rip everything off from Christie and I steal from Christie endlessly, is that even she only had like a various number of permutations. And at a certain point, you run out of these.
And some of them are really audacious. So And Then There Were None
Amazing.
is incredible. It's like Sarah Pinborough would write that sort of twist now, I think.
right.
Have you read any Sarah Pinborough?
Yeah.
She's
Oh.
a really, really, really good author, but
Yeah.
her books are just
The
wild.
twists are bonkers, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
we came up with a good idea now that you doing some kind of like Yo-Yo Moyes sort of, like sad, funny story, instead of
Yeah.
like some dark
Yeah.
police
Just
procedurals.
for a break. I'll end up killing someone, though.
Yeah, I know.
always do.
Yeah, but just like, the kind of like who's going to marry who, it's kind of the best plot in the world.
I
in a
actually
way.
wrote a rom-com. That was my
Oh, yeah?
my very first book, before
Really?
I wrote I Let You Go.
Okay.
And my agent said, this is great, it's very funny, I don't think this is your best effort. It was like being at school and being told, could do better. She said, this book will define you forever. This is the start of your career. Do you want this to be the book that everyone knows is your debut?
She
And I
sounds
didn't.
terrifying.
She was. She's not my agent now.
That's funny.
But I mean, she pressured you to write.
So then she said, have you got anything else in your head? And I told her the twist in I Let You Go, and she said, write that.
Oh, that's great.
That one's good.
That kind of person's
Wow.
amazing. Sophie Hannah did that for me with my.
So she didn't say, "I want you to kill someone."
No, she didn't. She didn't. So Sophie Hannah is brilliant.
Yeah, she helped me
Love
a lot.
Sophie Hannah.
I'm a big fan. She's such a good help to me. But I had something that I wanted to ask everybody here, and Ida will laugh, my editor, because there's something from Norway that had a massive influence on me as a writer throughout my whole life. And I was going to ask you whether you must have, because I grew up in Cyprus, but there was a TV series, Ida, that was massive called Maelstrom. That was Norwegian.
Yeah.
Ah, you remember it? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
It's from.
Did you watch? Did you
Yeah,
watch
with-
Look at their little
Yeah,
faces.
the cliffhanger with the dolls.
the dolls, the burning dolls, and
Yeah,
everything,
yeah.
and the madness, and the
Oh my
sister
God.
that's crazy. It's not crazy. And the twist.
I think it was a co-production between NRK and BBC.
Oh, was it? Okay.
Yeah, because it was like there was a lot of English actors.
Yeah,
there,
but she's kind of half Norwegian, the lead of it, and I
Yeah.
never recovered from watching that when I was like
No,
6
no.
or 7 years old. Yeah,
We didn't either.
yeah, it's amazing, right?
Oh, but have you seen it as a
I
grown
watched
up?
it about 5-6 years
Yeah?
ago.
And it-
I
it
did.
holds up?
The production values are a bit,
Yeah.
but the twist itself of
Yeah.
basically the central premise.
Are you
is
gonna
just
spoil it for
I'm
me?
going to ruin it for everybody.
Okay.
Now, is that the no? Maybe I shouldn't, because you should watch it.
No, go on, spoil it. I'll
sorry.
forget. I'm menopausal. I've got a terrible
Yeah.
memory.
Okay, basically it centers around two sisters, and the one that you think is crazy is sane, and the one that you think is really sane is completely barking mad.
Brilliant.
And you don't realize that until the very, very end, and it's so dark and it's so frightening. There's little dolls, and it's just like it's really
It has burning
yeah.
dolls.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's terrible.
And is that like a major thing? Do people? Everyone still remembers it. So clearly, it was a.
Sort of cultural
Yeah,
touch
like
point.
a-
But so,
Yeah.
speaking of which, like now you've been talking about like your childhood sort of impressions,
Influences,
influences. But what about
Yeah.
you, Claire? What was your kind of like? Was it Agatha Christie? Was it something? What was it?
I think Agatha Christie. So I basically read my parents' bookshelves when I was a very advanced reader, and so when I was little, and I finished reading all the children's books, and then I read my parents' shelves, and that was Agatha Christie, Ruth Rendell, Daphne du Maurier. So all the classics.
We had the same parents.
Oh my God. Well, this is now too extraordinary. So I read all of those, and then as I got a little bit older, I moved on to. So I read Sophie Hannah, and Sophie Hannah was really formative for me. Do you have Sophie Hannah in translation?
Yeah, I love Sophie Hannah.
Right, so Sophie Hannah did two things that influenced me, and one was she said something doesn't have to be probable, it has to be possible.
Thank you for remembering that. So when earlier we were talking about whether things are believable or not.
Yeah.
That's that I was trying to think. I was thinking, what does Sophie Hannah always say? What does she always say? And I couldn't remember. That's it. Probable.
So she says this. So it doesn't have to happen all the time, but it has to be possible. And if it's possible, you can get away with it.
Right. That's it.
So she said that, and that was a big influence on my writing. And then the other thing that she did was she wrote, and I think she was one of the first people to write a crime novel which has a police investigation, but it also has the POV of a woman,
And a psychological
woman in
thriller.
peril,
Woman
a
in peril.
psychological thriller.
Yeah.
And she was doing that for really quite a long time before we came along.
She
and
combined
before-
them both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Totally.
But let's stop a bit with Daphne du Maurier, which I think is a very highly important writer. And what do you guys think about the film, the new film version that was done last year with Armie Hammer
I
and?
didn't watch it because I watch the other one like every 10 minutes. I'm so obsessed with the 1940s.
Yeah, exactly. The Hitchcock
and it's
one, right?
perfect. And why would you
Yeah.
do it again? I did
Because
watch,
it's trash. That's what I'm alluding
Yeah,
to. You know?
it is
Right.
awful. I did
Yeah.
watch it, and I hated it so
Did
much.
you? Oh, it's
Yeah.
not worth watching.
And in general, I don't like remakes. I don't, I see the point of them in that they're cash cows, but I just, when something is so good, why make it
Because
again?
and the novel is so spectacular as well.
Yeah,
I
and the
really
twist in that is the most. I think it's one of the best twists ever.
Yeah,
in the
yeah,
best.
It is, absolutely.
And there is
Incredible.
some kind of like, there is some like, when you're looking at this psychological thriller that has been so massively popular the last 10 years at least, and you guys are, representatives of as well. And I say that, there is something with like Daphne du Maurier and Persia Highsmith are perhaps, and of course the movies of Hitchcock are, which sometimes he has been doing based on both, I guess, and that's where they're coming from, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Can I make a confession? We're among friends, aren't we?
Yeah.
So I had never read a Patricia Highsmith until 2 years ago. I read Strangers on a Train.
Oh.
I thought it was dreadful.
I've not read that one.
I thought it was absolutely awful. I was so bored all the way through.
But have you seen the?
Is that a terrible thing to
Have you seen the
very
Ripley
honest
movie
thing to
with Matt
admit.
Damon?
The Strangers on the Train?
No,
you mean
tell us.
No, but we're talking about
Talent
like
to Mr. Ripley.
Talent to Mr. Ripley.
Yeah, no, I haven't read it. I watched Talent
But
to
you
Mr.
watched it,
Ripley,
and-
and I loved it. But
Yeah, exactly. I think the book is also great, but I also liked Strange on the Train, though. But Talent to Mr. Ripley, it's I would say that's gorgeous
should
writing.
I read Talented
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah, you
Ripley?
should.
That's
Okay.
the only one that I've read. I have
Oh,
to say.
okay, right.
And I think that's
I
amazing.
want you to read. If I read Mr. Ripley, you read Strangers on a Train,
But
and
read,
then tell me if you think it's
read the
shit.
first one because there's several Ripley books, and
Okay.
they kind of like they decrease in quality. But the first one, The Talent of Mr. Ripley, which is basically the movie with Matt Damon and Jude Law.
Okay.
They're making it
It's-
into a TV series now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, with Andrew Scott, who is a god.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, that'll be good. Tell me about the Silent Patient movie, because is that in production?
Yeah, it's taken a while, but it's got there. It's very exciting. The script was written by Alice Birch, who wrote the screenplay for Normal People TV series. Was that one a Normal?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so
And
it's
top of the game.
it's high end.
Oh yeah, baby.
Yeah.
And we have a great director who I can't say, but it's just been signed.
But is it David Fincher?
No, it's a woman. I'm really glad to say. I think in this day and age, if you tell a story about a woman getting tied up to a chair and being terrorized, I think a woman needs to tell that story and write that story. And so, I'm going to be kept very much in the background of this whole thing, I think. But they're going to start filming in July, and I'm super excited about it. So, yeah, I'm really,
That's
really
amazing.
but I
And
just-
so is that an American production?
yeah, it's Plan B. It's Brad Pitt's company is making it, and I'm really excited
You're
because
so cool.
I'm excited because I am 100 years old now, and when I was younger, I was a screenwriter, and I'd always wanted to make movies. That's all I ever wanted to do. And then my career just got worse and worse and worse. And every film I wrote, got made, just was more of a bigger disaster and lost more money, and then didn't even get released. And it was horrific. But I let go of that need to try and feel like I can be in Hollywood or make it in Hollywood. And so now I'm just going to go to it. I'm not even going to read the script. Why would I? Because I know that the film is a director.
Just going to
So
go to
you're
the
just
set.
going to buy the
The ticket.
tux,
I'm gonna
go on a...
get
Are you
some
doing a
popcorn.
I
cameo?
don't think
Alex?
you need to buy the ticket. I think they might give you a ticket.
Well, you're just going to go
I'll buy
to
the
the set
popcorn.
and hang out with Brad Pitt.
Yeah, that would be nice.
You're
but,
so cool.
But are you doing a cameo?
They've not asked me to do a cameo,
You
but I
have
will
to
suggest
ask.
Oh,
it.
yeah, you
have
need to
to.
do that.
You've got to do a Hitchcock.
I'd love to do that. That's a good idea.
Yeah, you
What
saw
would
like
what would you like to do? Where would you like to be?
Well, I have to be a mental patient, obviously.
yeah, because I remember.
There's limited options in that book.
Oh,
But did you see
yes.
this, like, for example, in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the one with Gary Oldman, like 10 years ago?
Loved that.
Yeah, great. And then
Loved
you see,
that.
like, John le Carre, he's just like,
Yes.
he's sort of when, it's
It's at the Christmas party? Or?
Yeah, it's a Christmas party, and he's,
Yeah.
like, kind of directing people,
I
and,
didn't
like,
even
when they're
know that,
singing,
really?
like, Soviet songs or something.
Yeah, they're singing the Russian national anthem.
Yeah, exactly.
They're singing two songs at that Christmas party. You know which the other one is? It's like they sing at the Christmas party in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. They're singing the Russian national anthem, and he's the second best secret agent in the world, which is an old like
funny.
spy spoof
Yeah.
song.
Can we just have a shout out for John le Carre? Because he's another one like Christie that I study
Yeah, yeah.
obsessively. Like his plots, his twists are, I would say, up there with hers. Like everything is a flip of what you're presented with. It's just incredible how he does that.
I know.
He's amazing. I mean, I find him hard to read, but because they're lengthy and complicated.
Yeah.
And the TV series of Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, I've tried to watch 4 times
Yeah.
during lockdown. And at the end of episode 1, I was like, I still don't know who is who. Or who it's like, it's so,
Yeah.
But the
But
twists are
what I found intriguing with John le Carre is that he's just like through his career he writes simpler and easier and catchier. His latest novels are way easier, more almost like pop culture spy novels.
So I was just going to say, I think they're more commercial. I think
Yeah.
he got more commercial. And actually, I am increasingly thinking that readers don't want overly convoluted plots. They do want faster paced, and they want them to be clever still, but they want them to be accessible.
That's interesting.
Yeah, because I don't think like The Spy Who Came In From the Cold.
I love that film so much.
Oh yeah,
That's
great.
a good
my
one.
God, with Richard
And
Burton.
also the novel, but maybe that novel wouldn't be published today.
Well, there are a lot of classic novels that wouldn't be published
yeah,
today.
I do
think.
find, I have to say, I do find the homophobia in Relentless Homophobia and John le Carré quite hard to take, because there's always a really loathsome gay character in every single book, and I think that's nowadays a little problematic.
But have you read this amazing series of reviews that Umberto Eco has written?
No.
Because he writes like.
You can have to give me a reading list at the end
Yeah,
of
yeah,
this interview.
Yes,
We'll
yes,
figure
can we have
that
it in
out.
the show notes?
Umberto Eco has written like reviews of famous book, but like they're like contemporary reviews, and he's written this amazing review of Kafka's The Process, and he says, "Who is this Joseph K? The readers want answers."
Oh, wow, I love that.
It's not getting anywhere.
I feel like I should be interviewing you actually at this point.
Because there are a lot of classic films now that are being released with trigger warnings
Everywhere.
and disclaimers.
All the
You know,
time.
Gone with the Wind has got this big, you know, quite rightly, this big explanation about how this was of its time, and you know, we clearly don't condone. Should we be re-releasing classic literature with a foreword from someone more contemporary that says, you know, there are issues, there's homophobia in here, it's
But I
of
would
its
say
time?
it's interesting
That's
you
a good
bring up
question.
Gone with the Wind, because I read Gone with the Wind, this massive novel, like last year, and for the first time, and
Wow.
I was just
Well,
like,
you
I
really
was.
did have a slow lockdown.
Well, maybe a boring life. I mean, I'm not going to deny that. But anyway, I have to say, though, that it was mesmerizing. I mean, that being said, it's horrifyingly racist. And there is no doubt about it. That, like her way of describing kind of black people in the U.S., it's beyond, it's terrible. And, I'm
but
not...
it's still happening. You know,
Yeah, exactly,
we
but-
can have all these disclaimers, but there is still such horrific racism.
Yeah,
in
well,
the world.
that's one thing. But then I have to say, though, that call me a traditionalist, but I think it's important to know that, like, back in the days, there were ideas about, like, kind of racial prejudice and all that. That doesn't.
I think a warning is all it takes.
That doesn't like live up to our standards, and that's okay. I mean, because that's part of our history too, And I think people can, because it has to be said that, like, as a sort of aesthetic experience, I felt that this book was so magnificently beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And so well written.
That's
Do you know, I
lovely
read
to
it when I
hear
was like
that.
16. I don't remember it at all.
Because
I
I
love the
was-
film hugely, obviously.
Well, I have a soft heart, It's just like, the kind of like the love story there. I was just.
They are such an awesome couple, aren't they? Like, they obviously would fight and fight and fight, but they are the sexiest, most romantic couple
Yeah,
ever.
it's amazing.
We're about to run out of time, but we have to.
So bad,
could
we can just sit there and like.
But we have just a couple more questions. Just one thing I really need to ask you, Claire, because one thing I really loved about your book Hostage was that it's a airplane thriller, and I grew up with both the disaster movies of the 80s and the airplane spoof movies.
Airport and
Yeah,
airplane.
yeah, yeah.
Airport and airplane.
Yeah.
And then later, Con Air, Snakes on a Plane.
Yeah.
I mean, like plane movies.
Yes.
What are your favorite plane movies?
Ooh, so I reckon, what's the one with Jodie Foster?
Oh.
Where
But
she-
that's a rip-off of Lady Vanishes.
I know,
That's
I know,
outrageous. I got so mad when I saw
but I
that.
still love it. I still love it. What's
It's
it
called
called?
it's one word, begins with a U. It's something. You know the one where she's on a plane and her daughter disappears.
And your daughter's never been on the plane, and it's like, is she mad?
Does
or,
no one remember what it's
so
called?
anyway, I like that.
Okay.
But Con Air. Con
Con Air,
Air
yeah.
is my absolute favourite.
But
Because there are loads of bad people on a plane. And this was the thing about writing Hostage, was this feeling that you can't escape. I was very much channeling sort of Murder on the Orient Express, 35,000 feet in the air.
Which basically is Con Air almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's, there are lots of sort of big sweaty men on it. And it's just really exciting. And there's also one of the creepiest characters ever on it. Like, it's really
Steve
unsettling.
Buscemi, or is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
Do you have
No,
any
but
favorite plane movies?
I have a real soft spot for snakes on a plane.
Yeah.
Because
So it's such a brilliant concept, isn't it? You
I mean, like,
imagine
well,
going,
you don't need to pitch the movie. It's just snakes on a plane.
Yeah.
Ah, you got
That's
it.
how they sold it. You know that, right?
but
Yeah,
that's
that's how they sold it.
Yeah.
On
That
that
was
one
the log
sentence.
line.
Yeah. So what's the pitch?
Asbjørn.
Snakes on a plane. Yeah.
No, but speaking of like sort of very similitude and like reality on like movies, I have to say though that Fahrenheit, what's the name? The one with United 93,
Yeah.
with the Paul Greengrass, the one about like 9/11. It's a very somber, serious movie, but about
Yeah.
like the people who recaptured the
United
plane.
93 is probably it's one of the best plane movies, but it's also by far the best 9/11 movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
think-
yes, because there's an awful 9/11 movie which is pretty
Yeah,
much
yeah.
all in the cockpit. I can't remember what it's called, and it's terrible. There are a lot
Because
of terrible
Did you
9/11 films.
have to watch
I watched
all
all
of
of them.
Did you?
I watched
Did you?
all the disaster movies, all the plane
And
movies.
then what? Take notes and kind of see what
no,
parallels what there were,
just
or
a
what
sort
did
of
you do?
just a feeling of what do I like, what do I want to replicate, but. No, it's just it was an excuse to watch TV,
But-
Alex. All right?
Yeah.
But
That's where
to
I
me,
was going,
because
yeah.
this United 93, it's it's like it's Paul Greengrass when he was at the height of his power, the one who did Jason Bourne and Bloody Sunday and whatever, and it's kind of real time. So basically, it happens. It's an hour and a half perhaps, and then it's the hour and a half from these people kind of like board the plane till it goes down, basically, and so it's this like kind of like very, it's so. You know what's going to happen, right? So when these
It's
people
really
are just
powerful.
like the kind of most like banal thing you can do in a morning flight to kind of get your bad coffee, you sit there and just like, oh well, the sun is shining in the window, and then, and so it's just that made a huge impression on me.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love Con Air, so I don't want to spoil I don't want to take away the fun from that.
Oh. Final question. James Bond or Jason Bourne?
Well, that's not the right question. The right question is which Bond?
Okay, let's start with that.
Surely.
Okay, so could you just told me we'll have a couple of minutes, so let's just put
Can we
arrange.
also then, if we're going to talk about James Bond, can we also spoiler the most recent film and,
Oh, yeah.
decide whether or not he
I
should
just
have
watched
done
it.
what he did?
2 days ago, I watched it for the first time.
So can we like have a raised hand maybe?
Who are we prepared to talk
Should-
about the ending of it?
Can
The
we
twist
spoiler
ending?
the ending?
Everybody
or
here?
Yeah.
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 He's alive!
Is he? Yeah. Is he dead? Is he dead?
No, he's
Hands
dead.
up if he's dead.
He's dead. No, he's dead.
I think
he's dead.
There's a lot of people who think he's alive. I think he's alive.
Yeah.
I do. Yes. I think so too.
Okay, but if he's dead, they're just going to go back in time. That's
Yes.
all they're going to do, and just
Yes.
have a new Bond.
And they're kind of timeless.
and
Yeah,
then
like
they
young
can reboot
James
it.
Bond, like a young adult
Yeah,
series.
yeah.
It's a
younger-
Doctor Who,
yeah,
isn't it?
totally.
It's
Yeah, but okay, but
you were like playing
Okay.
up something here now, Alex. So which Bond then?
Let's rate them.
I think for me, it's always about. It's like Hercule Poirot as well. It's the first one that you saw.
So
And for me, it's always going to be. I know this is not cool,
Roger-
but it's
Roger Moore.
Of course, it's
Roger
Roger
Moore.
Moore. Roger Moore. Roger Moore. Roger Moore.
Well,
Roger Moore.
if you protest against that and scream Sean Connery, it means you're too old.
Yeah.
Oh, but you
Exactly.
see, but I
Or
like.
too young. You know,
Yeah.
depends on which way you go.
So I am split between Sean Connery because he's really sexy.
Because he's also a god.
And Roger
and Roger Moore is clearly not.
Roger Moore is not sexy, like at all. But he is the Bond that I grew up. So he was the Bond when I was too young to watch Bond films,
Yeah.
but watched them anyway.
Yeah.
And so he sort of is Bond for me.
Yeah, me too. Me
And he
too.
was also quite funny.
Yeah.
He's hilarious.
And that I
And he
think
was having a
you know,
great time. and
Whereas
he was,
Daniel
He was
Craig
he
is
was
not
running
funny
on
at all.
crocodiles.
Yo,
that's brilliant.
Live and Let Die.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
And I think it's a hard comparison to make because Daniel Craig is doing things in a politically correct world, which is good in a way. I like that Bond isn't shagging 56 women in a film because it's a bit tiresome. but there isn't the potential for sort of humour that there was, I think, in the politically incorrect days. So it's a hard comparison.
Yeah, it is. It is. Who are the others? I've gone blank. Who else?
Was it Josh
Brosnan?
Pierce Brosnan was awful.
The big hair. No.
But
Timothy Dalton.
yeah, but I have to say,
Dalton with the big,
but I have to say, Pierce Brosnan did one super classic Bond movie, Goldeneye.
But then he also did the next with Denise Richards.
Yeah, The World Is Not Enough for Die Another Day. And that's Timothy Dalton, who was maybe the closest to Ian Fleming's Bond before Daniel Craig.
So serious.
We don't want, but it's not Ian Fleming, is it? The Bond films are not the book. The Bond films are a family and fun and energy.
And humorous.
Well, Timothy Dalton's James Bond was more of a Jack Reacher, just like this revenge guy.
Yes.
And there's Josh Lazenby in The Majesty's.
So I watched it that literally 2 months ago, and again I was just he is so bad. I mean, it's kind of like a I can't speak, too much wine. A revisionist approach to George Lazenby now, where people are like, actually, no, he's kind of cool, he's kind of good. He's actually a stinker. He's a really bad actor, so.
Knute was not happy with us talking too much about Roger Moore.
They're going to throw us
So he goes like, no, you're off. So obviously James Bond over Jason Bourne then?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah.
All right.
What's your feeling, you two?
Well, I feel that I have the audience against me tonight, so I'm not going to say anything. No, but what are you saying? We've just been doing this for many years and asking the same question, and we kind of noticed that it kind of goes in sort of waves, I guess. That in the beginning, like around in the early 2010s, people were most into. Then it was like Bourne, and then Bond came back very strongly, and now.
And then I remember it was Emma Healy who said once she kind of killed the discussion for a couple of years because she said Jason Bourne, obviously James Bond too rapey.
Too rapey.
I was like, okay, so then it was not allowed to say James Bond for a couple of years.
That's quite a conversation killer.
But I mean, the times they are changing because now we're back to James Bond.
But now he's being written by Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Yes.
So it's different.
Okay,
female authors.
Well, our time is on, and thank you so much for being here.
Claire McIntosh, Alex Michaelidis.
Warm applause.
Tusen takk. Det gøy med gira forfattere og programledere som slipper mindre til enn vanlig, men dere ser dem igjen I morgen. Men nå det festkveld oppe, der kan dere se Claire McIntosh dundre videre. Det Romy Hausmann, det David Lagerkrans, og det Helene Flod, og så det Krimteatersport med Torbjørn Harr og Helene Vikstvedt. Så vi ses igjen her I morgen.